Great. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Open Education Conference 2024 session entitled Dual Enrollment and OER, Addressing Student Success and Equity in K-12 Settings. We'll have a little introduction. My name is Amee Evans Godwin. I'm Senior Advisor with ISKME. And if you're not familiar, ISKME is a nonprofit based in California doing social science research and education innovation. We're committed to knowledge sharing to make education more equitable, participatory, and open. We're the creator of the public digital library and collaboration platform OER Commons that started in 2007 publicly. And in my role, I'm also the facilitator of the Go Open National Network with partners like policy advisors, Foresight Law and Policy. We are a community that is advancing open education in K-12 settings in particular and around key issues where OER can be part of a larger set of solutions like dual enrollment and digital equity. I'll pass it to Alex.
Thank you, Amee. Hello, everybody. My name is Alex Perry. I work for an education policy consulting firm based in the Washington, D.C. area called Foresight Law and Policy. But most people actually know me as the guy who runs the College and High School Alliance. The College and High School Alliance is a national collaborative partnership of organizations, Advanced CTE, Achieving the Dream, Bard College, Jobs for the Future, the Middle College National Consortium, and the National Alliance of Concurrent Enrollment Partnerships, who all work in the dual enrollment space. So particularly thinking about dual enrollment policy and supporting national and state policymakers in the dual enrollment space to, one, expand equitable access to these programs, two, ensure the programs are high quality, and three, ensure student success. And so where Amee is the OER colleague on the call, I'm the dual enrollment colleague on the call, and that's the perspective that I'm bringing to this conversation.
Thanks, Alex. Our agenda and goals for the session today are to give you an overview of the dual enrollment landscape nationally. We'll do that by walking through research findings on dual enrollment participation, curriculum decisions, costs, supports, barriers, and opportunities, and with a special spotlight on barriers and opportunities for OER leadership, the roles at the high school level in particular, and where collaboration could happen across K-12 and higher ed. And focusing on the research findings ISKME conducted in Louisiana. Take it away, Alex.
Thank you, Amee. Well, I think first of all, the first question to answer is, what is dual enrollment, right? What is this thing that we're talking about? Especially important because it actually goes by lots of names in lots of different places. You might know it as concurrent enrollment, dual credit, early college, high school, pathways to technology, early college, high school, running start, college in the high school, post-secondary enrollment options. There are lots of terms that folks use to describe these programs, but at their basic level, what we're talking about is a partnership between a high school and an institution of higher education that allows a student who has not yet graduated high school to take a college course. And if that student passes the college course, that they would get college credit in a transcript from the partnering institution of higher education. There are lots of different modalities for what that looks like, lots of different ways the partnerships are arranged. Students can be taking the courses on the college campus, being taught by college professors. They could be taking it in the high school, being taught by high school teachers. The programs can have a general education focus. They can have a CTE focus. There are varying different levels of intensity of dual enrollment program. Early college high schools are a subset of dual enrollment programs that are more intensive, whole school models designed to serve predominantly underrepresented students in higher education, all the way down to dual enrollment programs that offer students the ability to take one or two one-off courses as part of this work. The easiest way to think about dual enrollment is to define it as what it's not. Dual enrollment is not advanced placement. It is not international baccalaureate. The reason why it's not those two programs is those programs are not partnerships between high schools and institutions of higher education. This really is focused on those programs that are those partnerships between high schools and colleges. And so whatever term it is that you have heard in your respective states, dual enrollment, dual credit, concurrent enrollment being the most frequently used terms, we're going to use dual enrollment, just sort of translate mechanism that into your own comfortable term that you're familiar with. Dual enrollment is big and it's growing. A couple of weeks ago, the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System, IPEDS, for the first time released a specific post-secondary level count of dual enrollment participation. Previously, we had been able to estimate dual enrollment participation using IPEDS because they capture age cohort data for students and they did have an under 18, but they only caught it in the fall. They didn't catch it in the spring. And so thanks to a lot of effort from dual enrollment stakeholders, IPEDS has now added a specific dual enrollment count and finds that in school year 2022 to 2023, 2.5 million students participated in a dual enrollment experience. There's about 1 million more than prior estimates when you account for some of the students are actually 18 when they're seniors in high school, and also when you're adding in students who are taking dual enrollment courses in the spring semester, but not the full semester. It's not like a million students just appeared out of nowhere, but we do now have a much more accurate count for dual enrollment participation. That's a lot of students, actually. It's really significant. High school students comprise 21% of community college enrollments nationwide. That means that 1 in 5 community college students are also high school students. In Indiana and Idaho, more than 50% of their community college enrollments come from high school students. And it's about 12% of the total undergraduate population. Dual enrollment typically much more prevalent in 2-year institutions of higher education rather than 4-year institutions of higher education, but that varies state to state. A lot of that is dependent upon the particular state policy context. There are states where the 4-year colleges are maybe not as involved in dual enrollment as the community colleges, but are significantly involved in dual enrollment, and some states where it's almost exclusively the 2-year institutions and very few 4-year institutions. There's nothing stopping 4-year or 2-year institutions being engaged in doing this work. As I say, largely it just comes down to state funding availability and the incentives around offering these courses. The incentives are pretty clear for community colleges. They've been experiencing rapid declines in enrollment, particularly in older students from adult populations. And so significant expansion in dual enrollment has largely kept community college enrollment static over the last couple of years, when otherwise they would have declined. Dual enrollment's big, it's growing, and it's a significant part of many students' educational journeys. Just to flip that on the to the K-12 side and put that into context, at its upper level, 60% of Indiana high school students graduated in 2021 with having taken at least one dual credit course. So more than half of high school students took a dual enrollment course. In states like Kentucky, that's 42%. In Colorado, that's 45%. It varies state to state in terms of how prevalent dual enrollment is, but we are now seeing states where more than half of students, or close to half of students, are taking dual enrollment courses by the time they're graduating high school. And so if you came into this session thinking dual enrollment is very small, and it only reaches a very small number of students, if there's one key dual enrollment takeaway I want you to leave with, is that actually this is a really significant feature of our current education ecosystem, and only continuing to become a more significant feature as time goes on. And as a result, it's really important for us to be thinking about not just how these partnerships are put together between the high schools and the colleges, but also the policy context within which those programs function, and being really thoughtful about who has access, how do we get them access, particularly given the significant benefits that dual enrollment has. Next slide, please, Amy. This just gives you a sense of what that distribution of students in 2-year colleges looks like. This is from the IPEDS data, an analysis conducted by the Community College Research Center, who've done a ton of really great data crunching in the dual enrollment space. You can see the states in which Dual enrollment students comprise a really significant portion of the community college population, 52% in Indiana, 57% in Idaho, 22%, 32% in Kentucky, 25% in Virginia, 27% in New York, 28% in Maine, 23%, 29% in Texas, really significant participation across the country and pretty evenly spread. I mean, if you looked at, if you're sort of interested in the comparison with advanced placement, that's what lots of people typically in the K-12 space know a little better than dual enrollment. I think the best way to think about it from data that we've looked at around comparing access is AP typically is more on the eastern and western seaboards, and then dual enrollment is more prevalent everywhere in between. Next slide, please. But we know that dual enrollment has significant benefits for students participating. And that's part of the reason why there's this big push at both the program and the policy level to think about how do we serve more students using dual enrollment. Again, you may have come into this session thinking, dual enrollment, is that something that we know works? Is there any research that demonstrates its effectiveness? And actually, there is a really significant level of research now looking at dual enrollment. I was part of an effort in the last couple of years to do a synthesis of existing dual enrollment research to help us understand what we know and what we still don't yet know about dual enrollment. And there are really quite a large number of studies, both quantitative and qualitative studies, mixed methods, randomized control trials that look at dual enrollment and really try to examine its impact on students. And the results are very positive. I think the key findings, in my opinion, the ones that are most replicated across all of the research, are that dual enrollment is a college access and success tool, that students who have access to college courses in high school are A, more likely to attend college, and then B, more likely to complete college as a consequence of having taken dual enrollment, and that's controlling for things like prior academic performance. There really is something, it seems, about a student taking a college course in high school that is a propulsive mechanism for that student in terms of making them then more likely to attend post-secondary and then also more likely to complete post-secondary. And at a time in which we know a significant number of jobs require students to have some degree of post-secondary degree credential, and there are some really quite concerning warning signs about declining post-secondary enrollments. Dual enrollment is one of those key tools that could be deployed for more students to access them, to be able to take advantage of dual enrollment. So we know that this is a college access and success tool. We know it provides more opportunities for students to experience college access, to get more post-secondary degrees or credentials, to be in a position to secure a higher wage job that will net more benefits to the local community. They're very popular amongst students and parents who've had the opportunity to participate. You can save money on your degree. You can save time on your degree if you are really smart about the courses that you select in dual enrollment and having a sense of what it is that you want to do. And we really are seeing through dual enrollment the integration of the secondary and post-secondary education systems, their structures, and their policies. But there are significant equity gaps in terms of access to dual enrollment. As I mentioned, it's a great college access and success tool, but it's also one for which there are equity gaps we need to address. You might be saying, all right, Alex, well, dual enrollment's this great sort of college access and success strategy. Lots of students are taking dual enrollment, but we're still seeing college access and college success slipping. And so how does that square together? And my argument is, because unfortunately, the students who are benefiting from participating in dual enrollment right now are those who largely were already going to college and already set up to succeed in college. And the research tells us it's not just those students who can benefit, that many more students can benefit. And so there is a real need to think about, okay, how are we sort of squaring that circle, right? Those students who could most benefit from dual enrollment are not currently the students who have access to dual enrollment, and we need them to. And so that's where policy comes in, that's where programs come in, and part of the big barrier is cost, right? Cost of participating in the courses, cost of the textbooks associated with it. And so that's a big piece of sort of what, as we're looking at this equity challenge associated with dual enrollment, we have to be really thoughtful about. Next slide, please. And as you can see here, this is again Community College Research Center. This is not pulling from the IPEDS data. This is in fact pulling from the K-12 side. Dual enrollment participation is a required data element on the civil rights data collection conducted by the US Department of Education. So this is a look at school year 2020-2021, which is the most recent year we have data from CRDC around student group representation in dual enrollment. As you can see, underrepresented Black students, underrepresented Hispanic students, underrepresented students with disabilities, underrepresented English language learners. If we go a level deeper and look at state-based data, tells a pretty consistent story around other student populations. Significantly underrepresented male student participation, significantly underrepresented low-income student participation, underrepresented largely in both rural and urban areas, underrepresented with homeless and foster youth. There's a consistent story here, which is dual enrollment is a great tool for college access and success, but the students who have access to that tool are not the students who are best placed to benefit from it. And so that's why it's essential for us to be thinking about what are the strategies we can deploy to make it easier for students to access these courses. And as I was saying earlier, cost is one of those factors, right? And there has been a state policy push to think about how do we reduce costs for students participating in these college course experiences? How do we cover the college tuition costs, the costs of providing these services to students? And a number of states have made progress towards doing that, have state funding in place that makes it free for students to participate in dual enrollment experiences. But while it might be tuition free, it's not necessarily cost free because there's still costs associated with participating in the programs through things like textbooks. And okay, if you've eliminated the $600 tuition cost associated with it, but there's still a $150 textbook bill that's due in order for the student to participate in the course experiences. That obviously is still a big equity barrier for low-income students to be able to overcome. States are really just starting to think about specific policy for ameliorating or eliminating textbook costs. And so this sort of consideration of the role of OER within dual enrollment is a really critical one in order for us to reduce some of these underrepresentation gaps by really addressing the whole costs of the program and ensuring that students are, when we say we want them to have access to no cost dual enrollment experiences, that they truly are no cost. They're not just no tuition costs, but they are no textbook costs as well. And so that's obviously a space where OER can play a really significant role, and one that we're excited to start exploring in more detail and further with ISKME and a number of state partners. And Amee, I think this passes it back to you.
This is such a great window on the 10,000-foot view. Alex, thank you for all the detail and walking us through the latest numbers. We're finding that cost is a significant barrier, and we're going to look more closely at one state, Louisiana, where ISKME was able to do some research recently and look what's happening at the district and classroom, instructor, and library level at the high school. So dual enrollment funding does vary significantly across state and district. Number of states require that dual enrollment be free for students, but as we might have found in Louisiana and perhaps in your setting, students are forced with the barrier to jump over for the cost of the textbook, traditional textbook. There are various funding arrangements, sometimes discretionary funding or policy, where districts might find it easier to supplement and offer the dual enrollment. But textbook costs are a barrier, and we'll look at some of those in more detail. This is a project that we're going to look at more deeply. ISKME has been focusing for many years, more than 10 years, on the role of the school librarian and OER leadership and collaboration. This research is an opportunity we had with LOUIS, the Louisiana Library Network, to work with them on two projects that are federally funded. They received a grant to create dual enrollment OER courses. And on the right, you see a list of those top 15 courses that were selected as high enrollment, high impact courses, general ed, and some specialty math and science courses that really could help across and spread the benefits of OER to address equity, to address the financial barriers, and to bring teachers into adaptable and flexible materials that fit the need of their classroom. These courses were very intentionally created to be culturally responsive and inclusive, and there was a lot of criteria around doing so that Lewis implemented in creating these courses. And as Alex said, the dual enrollment process depends on higher ed and K-12 partnerships. But what we found is the range and depth of those partnerships can vary along a number of factors. And this research was done as part of another project that Lewis was funded through the IMLS to look at connecting the pipeline across higher ed and K-12 dual enrollment. So there are a lot of factors. Where are dual enrollment decisions being made? Typically, curriculum decisions happen at the post-secondary institution, and levels of oversight, training, and engagement that come from post-secondary institution for the high school setting can vary significantly. We looked at the roles that are currently involved in these partnerships. Guidance counselors, college counselors in high schools have a big role. High school assistant principals, the district level curriculum directors and specialists, the higher ed dual enrollment coordinators at the different types of colleges, and also state education and library administrators that are working directly with state policy initiatives. One of them said, every institution gets to set its own policy for how they engage high school teachers. So one of the things we saw is student eligibility. As Alex pointed out, there are many students that are not yet participating that could really benefit from dual enrollment. And one of the factors is the setting of minimum scores on the ACT and math and English standardized tests, having a minimum GPA required. Students might also enter dual enrollment from a counselor's recommendation, but overall, the state and local requirements can set barriers or perhaps support for success in dual enrollment. It really depends on the individual setting. One example is when in Louisiana in 2018 to 19, the state raised the requirements for uniform GPA and ACT scores and ACT subject-specific scores. When they raised that, there was an 8% decline in student dual enrollment participation in that year. What type of eligibility is required at the high school level for instructors to teach these courses? Some of these may present themselves as barriers. We want dual enrollment teachers to be highly qualified, but we also find that there is a scarcity of dual enrollment instructors at the high school level. They're required to have graduate credit hours in the relevant content areas, perhaps a master's degree. But when we spoke to instructors, they lacked incentive to take these graduate master's courses and earn a master's degree because the increase in salary just did not cover the cost and effort of getting that higher education. There are factors around textbook costs specifically. that are particular to a district setting or a school setting, and these vary across the state. It varies who covers the textbook costs. Typically, the college students have always been expected to purchase their own textbooks, repurchase them every year, whereas high schools may reuse a book for 5 to 6 years. The school districts that are pressed for funds would try to convince the colleges not to change and update their textbooks every year. We heard that at the state level. And from a district STEM supervisor, our district does not pay for dual enrollment textbooks. We're working with the counselors, for instance, on how to rent textbooks from Amazon for maybe or more kids could share a textbook and then send them back afterwards. So we're starting to see that there are some very particular ways of either being creative to use discretionary funds, for instance, or to reduce the cost, or to have the kids share or rent books, or there's a lot of factors around students being adequately supported for success in dual enrollment. In Louisiana, there was some supplemental course allocation funds, for instance, that could in part be used to supplement or reduce the cost of traditional textbooks. Additionally, we introduced the idea of OER, as many at the high school level were not yet aware of it. And once aware of OER, the high school dual enrollment stakeholders recognize that there is an urgent need and potential for OER for dual enrollment, particularly to address these financial challenges, as well as for the personalization and flexibility that OER offers. Another quote from a STEM instructor: "Our school is definitely impoverished. The kids cannot afford to buy traditional textbooks. When we have one, we get one copy for the classroom. So the students don't have the luxury to bring the book home with them to do any homework assignments. So I'm always pushing for free, credible resources." That's quite significant to hear. Another factor we heard in Louisiana is that there's state mandated scripted curriculum, it's called, to increase the uniformity across the classrooms and teachers' compliance and fidelity in implementing that course material. And there were variations in viewpoint, whether this is an obstacle to prevent further strengthening dual enrollment partnerships between high school and post-secondary. And on the other hand, some saw having state requirements for content could offer a common foundation for building new curriculum and encourage joint OER curation. So there are some typical barriers to strengthen dual enrollment OER leadership and curriculum engagement across the board, not just OER. Because typically, in the case of school librarians in particular, they don't have a formal role in curriculum support, including or especially in dual enrollment classes, as those decisions are largely made by the higher ed institution. Overall, we see that as opposed to the higher ed and OER academic librarians at colleges and universities, a high school librarian is spending much of their time managing students, their attendance, truancy, subbing for absent teachers, being test proctors, coordinating services for students with special needs and disabilities. This consumes a lot of time. They do, and it's a professional part of their work, to devote time to providing media and technology support. And this leaves them limited time to work with any teachers, and especially dual enrollment teachers, where they could plan to use supplementary resources like OER, and there's a general lack of collaboration time between the librarians and the teachers that are involved in the course curriculum. The librarians are generally not involved in dual enrollment programs, except for monitoring students that might be working on dual enrollment courses in the library, homework, or test taking. But overall, we found that to grow high school instructor and librarian roles in dual enrollment curriculum, we have to make some changes because these roles are typically unsupported. Where we're seeing opportunities for dual enrollment OER leadership in K-12 and across the levels is to engage with high school librarians. They currently contribute much value to teaching students essential skills in research, in finding credible sources, in giving proper citation, and understanding IP and copyright, and licensing, which can connect directly to OER. And librarians really bridge the gap. They're an important adult in the high school environment to facilitate students understanding what to do when they get to the college campus. So we're really hoping that librarians can facilitate student campus visits, collaborate with colleges at the universities through conferences, online, and get into their hands dirty, getting into promoting OER adoption and adaptation, and starting this two-way street of effective collaboration across the pipelines. We're hoping that people see the high school instructor and the librarian as really a human bridge between high school and college, where students may find they're at a loss when they first join the college environment. Here's a state level program advisor for the libraries in Arkansas, in fact, because they did recognize this collaboration and were able to promote and support it. One advantage of taking high school students to college libraries was addressing their fear of librarians. We introduced them to college librarians, reassuring them that it's okay to ask for help. These small actions significantly helped our students. In surveys, students mentioned that high school librarians collaborating with the college librarians made them more comfortable using a college library. We don't necessarily have numbers on yet what difference a high school librarian can make in dual enrollment success, but we're really hoping that this is a significant factor, as we've seen how important the librarian is at the college level. So this research culminated in 5 recommendations. Number 1 is to establish clear pathways for the high school librarians and instructors to participate in curriculum support. It could be co-teaching, faculty meetings, joint planning with teachers, advocating for more librarian training. All of these things can help. Number 2, to provide comprehensive OER training for the high school stakeholders. And this work ended with ISKME creating a course for high school librarians in particular and high school instructors in dual enrollment to learn about OER and how to use it. Number 3 is to foster communication collaboration between the high school and post-secondary levels. Librarians can do campus visits together, be online talking, joint training, train the trader model, and mentorship could be very key in changing the current situation. The last 2 recommendations is because we saw this was significant to advocate for a state level coordinator for the school librarians and librarians to facilitate training, policy, collaboration efforts as a central advocate and resource for both districts and states and institutional levels. And finally, to more OER, prioritize funding for the development of OER, zero cost courses for dual enrollment, because we've seen with this the creation of high quality dual enrollment OER. It's very exciting to see these out there, not just for Louisiana, but anyone can find these and use them and adapt them to their own dual enrollment settings. So our last big takeaway, and urging the open education and education community more broadly, is to build capacity for leaders to impact dual enrollment policy, for educators to integrate OER because it really supports students and addresses equity, and providing areas for collaboration across the levels of higher ed and K-12, across the roles, to broaden dual enrollment participation and leadership. We believe there's so much promise there. We'd love to share this research. You could use these links or QR codes to find the white paper and the professional development course we created from this work. And finally, we're going to share our communication, our contact with you, but we'd love to hear what's happening in dual enrollment in your setting. Is the OER being used? What more supports are needed? Where can you see opportunity for more collaboration? Here's our contacts. Please get in touch. You can reach me. You can reach Alex. You can reach the Go Open Network. You can find us on OER Commons on the Go Open Hub, where we love to curate resources and have discussions about these issues. We have a newsletter, and we have a call out for more partners and more educators to join the Go Open Network. It's easy to do. You just go to this link on OER Commons and join the group, and you're in. So thank you so much. And thank you, Alex. Any last word for our audience?
I think the very last thing I will say is it's not intuitive getting high schools and colleges to work together, right? There isn't the same kind of established playbook for how to do that really well, in the same way that there is how to run a high school really well or how to run a college really well. High schools and institutions of higher education, they speak different languages, they operate under different accountability structures, and they have different incentives for how they think about things. And so I think one of the things that we're really coming to understand in the dual enrollment world is that partnership's really critical. And the depth of that partnership is really critical, that it's not just about a transactional relationship between a high school and a college where they're passing students and money between each other, that it requires a really intentional collaboration between both sides, and that both sides have resources, capacities, and skills to bring to the table to help serve students in the best way possible. And so, to the extent that you're sort of coming away from this presentation thinking, boy, where do I start, right? Like, that's what we're all thinking. And I think there's nothing wrong with getting stuck in with an equity-focused mindset of we want to create more opportunities for students. We want to eliminate the costs involved in these programs. We want to ensure that the programs are providing students with as many supports and services as possible. And so let's overcome our discomfort at the different ways that high schools and colleges talk and think and feel, and sit down around the table and decide how can we do this work better for students to ensure that they're netting the benefits of these experiences and having onward post-secondary and career success that nets them a high wage, high demand career, and sets them up for the rest of their life. So thank you very much. Really appreciate your time today. Always happy to chat dual enrollment in any context, so never hesitate to reach out.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening.